want to start by saying, most people don't believe this when I tell it. My friends laugh it off. My family thinks I'm exaggerating. And honestly, I get it. Because even I look back on it sometimes and think, there's no way that was real. But my roommates were there. All three of them. They lived every single part of this with me. And every detail I'm about to tell you is true. So, college, Louisville, Kentucky, a few years back. If you know Louisville, you know old Louisville, that stretch of neighborhood between campus and downtown, packed with these enormous historic mansions from the late 1800s, beautiful on the outside, absolute disasters on the inside. Most of the owners had done a half-decent job converting them into apartments, splitting up the rooms, adding kitchens where they could. Ours was one of those. I lived with 3 other people, 2 girls and a guy I'll call Travis, and the place was massive, over 2,500 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 2 stories, original wooden banisters, stained glass on the landing. It had even been a church at some point, which, honestly, made a lot of sense once we moved in. There were built-in pews on the first floor where our living room was supposed to be. So yeah, a converted church mansion in old Louisville, $200 a person, utilities included. If that sounds too good to be true. It was. When we first walked through the place with our landlord, we noticed the main staircase split 2 ways. One direction went up to the bedrooms, the other went down, into what we figured was a basement. That staircase going down was completely packed with paint cans and old drop cloths. No light. We didn't think much of it. Figured he'd come clear it out before we moved in. He never did, and within a week, we'd completely forgotten the basement even existed. 3 of us were working the same graveyard shift at a warehouse that summer. We'd leave around midnight, get home around 4 or 5 in the morning. So the apartment was empty every weeknight, basically the entire night. Our 4th roommate didn't work with us, and she told us early on she didn't feel safe alone in a house that big. So most nights during the week she stayed at her boyfriend's place, which meant between midnight and 5 a.m. nobody was home. Or, at least that's what we thought. About 3 weeks in, things started disappearing, and I don't mean like socks, or food, or stuff you'd just misplace. I mean cleaning supplies, dish soap, sponges, our bowls, spoons, entire unopened bags of toilet paper. Gone. At first we laughed about it. We genuinely laughed. Figured someone was just forgetting where they'd put things. But by week 3, nobody was laughing anymore. It just didn't feel right in that house. I don't know how else to say it. You know that feeling when you're asleep, and even in the dream, you know something's wrong? Like someone is moving through your space that you didn't invite in. That's what living there felt like. Every single day. Then one weekend we threw a party. Good amount of people, everyone properly drunk by midnight. And I, in my infinite wisdom, decided it'd be a great idea to play hide and seek. Everybody was in. I started running around turning lights off, 1 floor at a time, trying to get the whole place dark. I did the bedrooms, the hallways, the first floor. And then I turned around. There was still a light on, coming from the back staircase, the one going down. I found Travis and told him to grab his gun. Yeah, I know. Drunk college kid with a pistol in a house full of people. Not my finest moment. But I was done feeling uneasy in my own home. So the two of us headed toward that staircase, everyone else filing in behind us, completely quiet now. No more party sounds. We went down. Every step hit a spider web. The light was coming from below, but there was a screen door at the bottom of the stairs blocking the entrance. Someone had caulked it shut. The whole frame sealed with a caulk gun. Travis pushed it open. Didn't take much force, and he stepped inside. The basement opened up into this huge space, and there, off to the left, was a lamp. No shade on it. Just a bare bulb sitting on a beat-up end table. Next to it, a mattress on the floor, covered in old comforters. Stained, dirty. Travis wasn't watching where he was going, and he tripped over a box. It went everywhere. Hundreds of used needles. Broken, bent, scattered across the concrete floor. We all just looked at each other. Someone had been living down here, underneath us, while we slept, while we were at work, while our roommate was alone upstairs. Thinking she was by herself, we started looking around. There was an old wooden TV with bent antennas on a broken stand, a photo album full of pictures of strangers smiling, someone's whole life just sitting in the dirt. And then I found something under the end table, a manila folder. Clean, newer looking than everything else down there. I opened it. Prison release papers. There was a mugshot at the top, and below it, a list of charges. Assault, drug trafficking, domestic violence, released 2 months prior. I didn't say a word. I just closed the folder, looked at Travis, and we got everyone out of the house and called the police. The cops came, went through the whole basement, and found a door at the back, one none of us had ever noticed, leading out to our rear lot. It had been unlocked the whole time we'd lived there. That's how he was getting in, during the day while we slept, at night while we were at work, walking through that door, coming up through the caulked screen, going through our kitchen and our bedrooms, taking what he needed. We moved out immediately. About a week later, I went back to get a few things I'd left in my room. Late afternoon, I pulled up to the house and looked up at the front of the building. My old bedroom window had a light on in it, and the front door was wide open. I drove away. I left everything in that house. I never went back. And whoever had that light on, whatever was in that room, I genuinely don't want to know. This happened about a year ago. I still think about it almost every night. I live in the basement of my family's house. Just a bedroom down there, nothing fancy. One small window at ground level, the kind that sits right at the grass line outside. I can see feet when people walk by. That's about it. I was used to sounds at night, the house settling, my cats moving around. It never bothered me. I'd lived down there long enough to know what normal sounded like. So I went to bed around 1 in the morning. Woke up around 4. Couldn't tell you why. I just did. When I'm half awake like that, the first thing I usually do is just lie there and listen. That's when I heard it. Shuffling. From outside, right near the window. My first thought was cats. We had 2 of them. They'd wander outside sometimes. I didn't even fully open my eyes. I just thought, cats, and started to roll back over. That's when both my cats walked into the room from the hallway. I sat up, and I looked at the window. 2 green dots, perfectly circular, perfectly still, right there at the glass. The kind of glow you get off night vision goggles when light catches the lens. Someone was crouched outside that window, in the dark, staring directly into my room. I don't know how I didn't scream. I just lowered myself back down onto the mattress, slowly closed my eyes, pretended to be asleep. My heart was going so fast I could feel it in my throat. I lay completely still. After maybe a minute, the green glow disappeared. Okay, he saw me and left. That's what I told myself. 5 minutes later, I heard shuffling from the other rooms in the basement. He was inside. Our basement only has 1 entrance, 1 door right next to mine. He hadn't come through my room, which meant he was already in the basement, or he'd found another way in I didn't know about. Either way, he was in the next room over, moving around in the dark. I kept my eyes shut, kept my breathing even, every muscle locked. I was doing everything I could to look like I was still asleep. My cats had settled on the bed beside me, which somehow made it worse, because I was terrified one of them would make noise. That's when I got the idea. I had a sticky notepad on my nightstand. I reached over, as slowly as I have ever moved in my life, and I grabbed a pen. I wrote 4 words in the dark. By feel. There is someone in the basement. I folded the note, clipped it into the collar of the cat closest to me, and then I smacked him, hard, on the backside. He bolted, straight out the door and up the stairs. The second he ran, the sounds in the next room stopped. Dead silence. Like whoever was in there had just heard the cat sprint upstairs and was trying to figure out what that meant. Whether I was awake, whether I'd sent a message. Then, the footsteps came toward my room. He walked in, and he stood over my bed. I could feel him standing there, just right above me, in the dark. I didn't open my eyes, I didn't move. I kept my breathing long and slow, even though every part of me wanted to gasp. I don't know how long he stood there, probably 30 seconds. It felt like a lifetime. Then I heard my parents upstairs, my mom's voice, then my dad's, loud, urgent, moving fast. They'd gotten the note. My dad is military. He came down those stairs fast, with a rifle. By the time my parents got to the basement, the man was gone. No doors, no windows, just gone. The same way he'd come in. My dad went through every room, nothing. We went back into my bedroom, and that's when we found it, pinned to the wall above my desk with a knife. A photograph. It was a picture of a childhood friend of mine, someone I'd known years ago, before my family moved. I hadn't spoken to him in years, hadn't thought about him in years. I had absolutely no idea how anyone could have known that connection. let alone had a photo. I turned it over. On the back, written in pen, 6 words. "It's good to see you again." They never caught him. I don't know how he got in. I don't know how he got out. I don't know how long he'd been watching before that night. But I know it wasn't the first time. And I think about that every single time I hear something move outside my window in the dark. I need to preface this by saying, I am not someone who scares easily. I grew up in a loud house, big family, old walls. I'd watched enough horror movies alone in the dark to know the difference between manufactured fear and the real thing. I thought I understood what actual danger felt like. I didn't. My family had gone on vacation for the week. Work kept me home, so I told them to go without me. I actually liked the quiet. Whole house to myself. No schedule, no one else's noise. It was around 2 in the morning. I decided to really lean into it, grabbed a blanket, went down to the basement, turned off every light, put on a scary movie. I wanted to actually frighten myself. I remember thinking there was something almost funny about that. Deliberately trying to scare yourself when you know you're safe. Nothing can actually happen. This is my house. And then I heard footsteps on the first floor. I have to explain the layout. The basement is 1 flight down from the front hallway. When my family's home, I hear their footsteps constantly whenever they pass through. The sound carries straight down. So I knew exactly what I was hearing. Someone was walking across my first floor at 2 in the morning. I turned the TV off immediately. Complete darkness. I heard the basement door handle at the top of the stairs, the click of it turning. The door opened, and footsteps started coming down. Carpeted stairs, but old, creaky. I could hear every single step. I moved across the basement floor in the dark, slowly, feeling my way. Got behind the TV and crouched down. As I passed the screen, I noticed it was still faintly glowing from being on just seconds ago. I couldn't do anything about that. I just had to hope whoever was coming didn't see it. The footsteps reached the bottom of the stairs, and then nothing. Silence. I stayed crouched behind that TV for what I estimated was close to 2 hours. I counted seconds in my head. Got to 60, started again. Over and over and over. I was so still that drool was running down the side of my mouth onto the carpet, and I didn't dare swallow. The basement was so quiet, the silence itself started to hurt my ears. I kept thinking, an intruder would move. They'd shuffle, knock something, breathe loud. Nobody stands completely still in a pitch-black basement for 2 hours. That's not something a person does. So either I'd imagined all of it, the footsteps, the door handle, every single sound, or whoever was down here was doing exactly what I was doing. Waiting. After 2 hours, I decided I had to move. I couldn't stay there forever. And that's when I noticed the smell. It had been building so slowly I hadn't registered it consciously. Sweet and heavy and wrong, like iron and damp wood, but worse. I told myself it was old pipes, mold, something behind the walls. I started moving toward the stairs, one hand on the wall, not making a sound. I was almost there, when something collapsed on the other side of the basement. A loud crash, something falling hard to the floor. I didn't think, I just ran. Up the stairs, through the front door, outside, called the police from across the street. The officers went in, cleared the house, and then they came back out with serious expressions and started asking me questions. They'd found a body, my elderly neighbor. He'd had a heart attack. Their belief was that he'd wandered in through my unlocked front door while he was dying, looking for help. Natural causes. Nothing suspicious. I felt sick. I sat there thinking about this old man dying in my basement while I was crouched 6 feet away, too scared to move. And then I thought, what was that crash? That collapse at the end? The thing that finally made me run. I asked the detective about it. He paused before he answered. The back door of my house had been found open, the one leading out to the yard, and just outside it, in the mud, a single bare footprint. My neighbor had been wearing shoes when they found him. Someone else had been in that basement, the whole time, silent in the dark, right there with me, right there with him, for 2 hours. I don't know if they came in before me or after. I don't know if they were already there when my neighbor wandered in. I don't know what they saw, standing in the dark next to a dying man. I don't know what they were waiting for. The only reason I can think of that I made it out is that I ran when I did, and I still think about what would have happened if I'd stayed quiet 5 more minutes.